Hi guys, it is Dom from Soundsphere here. Just had the wonderful opportunity to chat to Glen Matlock about his new record, Consequences Coming. Of course, we chatted about his time in the Sex Pistols as well, his thoughts on new bands like Wargasm, and a lot more besides that. It was a great chat. Thank you so much to Glen for his time and speaking to me about his history and what's to come for him as well. So yeah, thank you so much for checking this out, you guys, and we'll see you again really soon. Cheers. Glenn, thank you so much for making the time for me today,
All
mate.
right. Well, I'm just a bit confused. You sound very English, and
I
I
am
thought,
very, I am very English. I'm very much from Yorkshire. So yeah.
all right. Do you know Michael Parkinson personally?
No, I do not.
No, all right. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm very, very much from East Yorkshire, but yeah, it does confuse some people sometimes.
Where's
Um,
East Yorkshire? Hull or somewhere?
yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, from Hull.
Oh,
We're going to
oh,
play there soon. So,
oh, nice. Yeah, I think that'll be.
Raiders
Yeah.
from Mars territory is no bad thing.
Yes, indeed, indeed it is. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
what we are. That's what Hull is most known for, and Chip Spice, and yeah, some other not so savoury things, but mainly Chip Spice and the Spiders from Mars. Yeah, claims to
Right.
fame. Beautiful South too. Beautiful South.
Yeah.
Um,
All right.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, first off, again, thanks for the interview time today. I did want to ask you, given that you've got this new record coming, well, it's called Consequences coming. Given everything you've done with your career, how do you feel like this record and this time in your musical life is pushing you in new ways as an artist? How is this kind of,
I don't know that it is actually. I think I'm still doing the same old shit, basically.
All
All
right,
my
man.
life. But it's good shit, so why should I give it up? No, I think musically I'm in a similar place, but I obviously quite pleased I can attract some quite talented musicians to
Mm,
play with me, which I'm always grateful for. Um,
yeah.
and I think what changes my music is the lyrical stance of it, and it
Yes.
kind of. I always like what John Lennon said. Actually, I'm not the biggest Beatles fan that ever I made out to be, but he was asked in his later years who he's writing for, and he said like the kids who grew up with me. So that's a similar kind of thing,
Yeah.
really. I'm not Che Guevara. I don't pretend to be that, but there's some pretty heavy duty, stupid stuff going on in UK at the moment and the Western world. And I
Yeah.
think it's an abrogation of responsibility to not kind of reflect that somehow, but all encompassed within a good toe tapping tune, hopefully.
Yeah, there's certainly some tracks on there that are pretty groovy. Although, yeah, some quite heavy themes, which we'll talk about in a second. In terms of the recording process, you mentioned obviously working with a bunch of people that you admire. Again, you've got a lot of records under your belt, various different styles and outfits. What about this record will you remember for the rest of your career? Like, are there any moments in this record that really stand out to you among everything else you've done that will really stand the test of time in terms of memories that you've created while building it?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I quite like the single we've got out at the moment, Head on
Yeah.
a Stick.
Yeah.
Seems to have gone down quite well. I'm not daft enough to think at the age of 66 and a half and with a freedom pass that I'm going to be number one all around the world with all the teeny bubbers. But, I'm just happy to kind of create a bit more of a niche for myself kind of thing. And more people listen to your records. That's kind of cool, as long as they all pay for each one, you make another one. It's what I do, really. I'm a songwriter.
Mm.
If you say you're a songwriter, if you're a fisherman and you don't go fishing,
Yeah.
if you're a footballer and you don't play football, you're full of shit. And I'm a songwriter, so I write songs. It's kind of my raison d'etre. And as soon as you got more than a dozen songs knocking around your head, you can't think straight because it's just like you got to get this stuff out there. I've
Yeah.
got this stuff out there, and if people like it, great. And,
Yeah.
and there's some heavy themes on it, but I think I do it all with a Matlock kind of tongue in cheekness. When I write a song, I like to try and write a song like I'm having a conversation with people. But I think there's some pretty good songs on the album, and
Yeah.
there's some like this and there's some like that, and some a bit like the other thing.
Yeah.
But I've even got a doo-wop song on the album. It's kind of yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There is that diversity on there. I wanted to ask you, with with these tracks like Head on a Stick, obviously being inspired so much by our ridiculous political system and the political system around the world, and the sort of stress and anxiety that is generally around, particularly the UK, but also the US. Did you find getting these songs out onto a record? Did you find it cathartic for you? Did you get your frustrations out, or I'm imagining they're still there, but certainly, did you feel some catharsis?
Yeah, I mean, me writing a song about it hasn't changed anything.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I've been doing a lot of press, and I did a couple of quite big national British morning breakfast TV news programs. Said my piece on it, to plug the single. So many people have been writing to me saying, Glenn, good on you for saying exactly the same things that nobody else feels that they can say, really. I think people in this country feel a bit kind of browbeaten by the whole affair. What was funny, though, I don't know if you see it wherever you are. I know you're from Hull, but there's a guy every day he's in Parliament Square. He's called Steve Bray. And he's the guy with a loud hailer, and if there's a motorcade, he's shouting at them, and he shouts at Parliament outside Downing Street. I sent him a copy of the song. Him and his missus got all the politicians' heads, put them on poles, and they played my record with these poles outside Downing Street. I think it's quite funny. So there you go.
Yeah.
Little things please little minds. But I think all you can do, really, you can vote. If there's a march, go on it, which I do sometimes. And just keep sniping away at these people. You're like kind of gnats biting their ankles until hopefully they've had enough. But I've called the album Consequences Coming because I think people are beginning to, there's a small, tiny chink of light at the end of the tunnel. It might be a train coming the other way, but I think that people are wising up that they've been hoodwinked. And so I think there will be some consequences coming for those kind of people who's mugged everybody off.
Yeah,
it's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's interesting to see how people are sort of picking up steadily on what's happened and how they were maybe misled, particularly around Brexit. But that is obviously a much deeper conversation. But I think it's great that you're getting those themes out there. But alongside Head on a Stick, you've also got tracks like This Ship and Something About the Weekend, and they're melodically quite upbeat, quite upbeat and quite uplifting. So was it intentional to have that sort of that upbeat nature of the melodies and the sort of bouncy nature of those tracks, particularly alongside these heavy themes, as kind of a juxtaposition?
Yeah, well, you mentioned something about the weekend. I don't really see that as it was a song. This guy Mark, who I co-wrote the song with together with this Japanese guy, Hotai, he sent me a riff. He said, "Can you think of anything for this?" And I kind of came up with that. That's kind of more of a pop song about letting loose. And I've also this Japanese guy who also co-wrote it with me, called Hotai. He's like the Jeff Beck of Japan.
Nice.
And he's the guy who wrote the Kill Bill theme tune. He's a very talented guitarist. Anyway, so that's that thing. This Ship, though, although it's a melodic kind of thing, it's one of the last songs I wrote. In fact, Head on a Stick and This Ship were the last two songs I wrote for the album. And I recorded a lot of it, and I went in and recorded them a bit more. This Ship really is about kind of me questioning my patriotism to England. Now, not that I'm not, but it's like this whole right-wing populist thing saying, well, if you don't vote for us and don't believe in us, you're not a true patriot. Well, do you know what? Fuck off. That's not true, And This Ship is like, I've moved on from you. Like, you're rubbish, basically. So I see it as more of a wistful kind of song, if that makes sense,
Yeah. A nice way to end the record as well. I mean, when you look at what you've done with this record, and obviously if you look back at Good to Go and the other stuff you've done, obviously Good to Go came out a few years ago now. Are you a person to look back too much on previous records you've done, particularly the stuff you've released yourself? How do you reflect on?
Oh, really? I don't listen to them. I know how they go.
Yeah.
And if it comes on the radio or somebody's playing it, or if you're teaching somebody one of the songs for a live gig and you listen to it, I think it sounds pretty good. I'm pleased with Good to Go. And that was deliberately I'd been doing loads of acoustic shows, and when I came to make an album, I kind of didn't want too kind of heavy drums on it. And I asked Slim Jim Phantom, who's a mate of mine, who's kind of, he's got half a drum kit kind of thing. And I wanted a little bit more skiffly, a little bit kind of rockabilly, and I knew full well that Slim Jim would give it a bit of a rockabilly kind of swing feel to it. So that was that. But I've done that, and this album's this album. And the album before that, I had somebody different, Javier Whaler, who was in the Stereophonics at the time, played drums on it. That's kind of more of the album's called Born Running. But there's a constant kind of theme in the last two records. El Slick plays a lot of guitar on it, which I'm pleased about. He's a fantastic guitarist. I promise him the earth, and then he ends up with a cappuccino and a sticky bun if he's lucky. But he'll still do it anyway, So it's kind of, I'm quite pleased in that respect that I can attract those people.
Yeah. I think, you mentioned earlier as well, how you're not trying to be number one with these records and appeal to younger people.
Well, I wouldn't say no if somebody said, "Glenn, you're number one this week." I go, "Oh, God, how's about that then?"
Yeah, of course, man. Fingers crossed, But one of the things we do as part of our work is work with young people who are struggling with, self-belief, self-confidence. And you would look at someone like yourself with the portfolio you've got and look at yourself and think you're a confident person. And I wanted to ask, for any young person that looks at you and goes, well, I'm never going to have what Glenn has. I'm never going to have toured the world. I'm never going to be able to do those things because I'm not good enough. I wonder, have you ever had a crisis of confidence, Glenn? If you wouldn't mind, sharing how you overcame that, if you could give me an example.
Well, I don't know. I've been fortunate that I was kind of quite well-known-ish from an early age.
Of course.
Maybe I didn't get the accolades I could have done. I got bad mouthed by the other Pistols, which I thought was pretty shitty already. But that was more grist to my mill to kind of go on and prove that I am worth something. I didn't start out with anything, I'm some working class bloke, and I've always funded myself and tried out. Anybody can do what I do, really. You just got to stick at it. And I think the downside is if you have financial concerns, which we all do have,
Yes.
I'm comfortable, but I'm certainly not a multimillionaire. You just, where there's a will, there's a way. You just get on with it. The whole hip hop thing. Most music, right? Yeah, dig this. You wouldn't have had original rock and roll unless somebody invented a tape recorder and you could get tape echo. To go blah, 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 on the vocals and stuff. You probably wouldn't have Jimi Hendrix if you didn't have a fuzz box, right? And you wouldn't have had like house music if somebody hadn't invented the drum machine or kind of hip hop and modern kind of chancy music. If you couldn't go and buy an Apple Mac computer that comes preloaded with GarageBand or some kind of, there's a technology that's kind of involved in these things. Most people have got a computer. You can make some kind of sound on it if you want it.
Yeah. Most
people could write a blog and post it up online if they want to, if they could take some pictures. They could DJ. Anybody can do it if they want to, so don't use it as an excuse.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, fair enough. And I wanted to ask as well, another thing we get asked quite a lot about is success, and people have weird kind of views of success. And I wanted to ask you, how do you, do you think much about success? How do you define it as someone that has had that, incredible success, we'll keep saying the word, over the time, in various outfits, and, you're still touring the world. How do you define success? What does that word mean to you nowadays?
It's not really something I think of. I think success for me, I'm good friends with Clem Burke. He plays on a couple of tracks on my album. He's staying with me at the moment, but he's gone out for a jog, right? And we're doing this little tour. But we chat about it, and he says he's had a lot, maybe a bit more success than me with Blondie, although now I'm playing with Blondie too. But he's always said, and I agree with him, he's always just wanted to be a working musician, which I have, and I've wanted to be a working musician stroke songwriter, which I have been. That's kind of enough in itself. And there's reward within itself that you get to make another record, or nobody was knocking down the doors for me to make an album. I wanted to make one, so I begged, borrowed, and did some deals with some people on some studio time, and then, well, I feel like I'm a startup artist myself, believe it or not. But that's the way it is,
Yeah, interesting take,
I'm
actually.
not Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
I don't.
yeah.
I know. I forgive you if you might thought I am, but
Well, it's, a little bit of an inkling. Yeah, yeah.
you haven't seen what I got on the bottom
Well,
half.
I've said that's what these calls are for, mate. That's what these calls are for. I mean, if you were to, obviously there are young bands out there that look at your back catalogue and what you're doing now and what you've done previously, and there are obviously bands out there doing very well. Like Wargasm is an example of a band that are doing great at the moment.
Well, I've heard of them.
Yes, indeed. Well, if you were to say to a band, if you had like 2 or 3 golden rules for a band and artist that that people that look up to you and what you've done, and they go, if they were like I am, and they go, Glenn, what do I do? What mistakes should I not? What mistakes should I avoid making? If I want to write a record, tour the world, and what things should I do? If you could come up with 2 or 3 tips for any young musician who's trying to make it at the moment.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking. Well, I think one of the things is don't get a day job. Your day job should be your art, and if you can't eat, then you can't eat. That's
Right.
You got to take that one on the chin until you can earn enough money out of doing what you're doing. Or you got some good chums, There's that. Don't take no for an answer. You got to realise the music business, if that's what you're going to try and be in, is full of people taking the easy way out,
Right,
and just keeping their head down to keep their job. Lots of A&R guys stay in the business because they don't actually sign anybody, so they don't lose any money for the record company, so they keep their job. And you got to do all the work for them, really. When you mention Wargasm, I know those guys. I know they put a lot of groundwork in, and they sort of presented the finished thing to their record company, their management. It's already a going concern. And these days, if you're a younger person, I kind of struggle with it and do what I can. But you've got the whole online thing, So in a way, it is a level playing field. You just got to be aware of that, really, and kind of use it to your own benefit.
Yeah.
If I really knew, I'd be not talking to you. I'd be in some kind of 1960s Reaver speedboat, classic wooden fast boat, off the Amalfi Coast. But actually, I wouldn't be. I'd be sitting somewhere writing a song.
Yeah.
That's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy doing it. So.
Yeah. It's lovely to hear your enthusiasm is still there. I think I know the answer to the next question a little bit based on our success chat. But before we finish, I do want to ask you about the term legacy and whether you consider your legacy as an artist and as a person, and are they 2 different things? Do you think about who you are as a musician and who you are as a person a lot, and the legacy you want to leave, or does it not really register with you?
Thinking.
Take your time.
I don't know. I don't really ever think about a legacy. Maybe I've already created my legacy with the Pistols thing.
Yeah.
But that was a long, long time ago. And what actually drives me is to try and be known on my own terms as somebody who's still kind of contemporary.
Yeah.
And not somebody who's lived off the past for the past 45 years, which I've always strove not to do, And I think now some people are kind of thinking, actually, Glenn's pretty good, he's still got his finger on the button. That's what drives me, really. So, legacy, no. Your legacy is what you come up with and what you put out tomorrow, not what you did years ago.
Yeah, that's a good. I've never heard that answer. That's a good answer, man.
I just made it up, but that's probably
it's about striving for focusing on the future rather than focusing on the past. I think people can get a bit too stuck on what they should or shouldn't.
Doff my cap to the past, but look to the future. That's what I try and do.
Yeah, I think people can. Yeah, they can get stuck on it, can't they? People can get stuck on what they should or shouldn't have done in the past, or what they have done, and actually that can really interrupt the future sometimes, I think.
Yeah, and also I think if you're trying to be a musician,
Mm.
Any success I've had is by sticking out like a sore thumb. You know, and if the Pistols had copied what was going on at the time, we would have probably been either a disco band or a like jazz rock kind of cocktail band, but we weren't. You know, and people can tell when you're for real. You know, if you
Yes.
try and copy people, they can tell that you copied it. And also, if you got something that, oh, we want to be just like them, by the time you've written a song, made a demo of it, go and convince somebody to put you in the studio properly and put it out. By the time you've done all that trying to sound like something you heard 6 months ago, you're too late.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's no point in doing that. You know?
Yeah. Onwards and forwards, Glenn. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't always succeed, but you
Yeah.
certainly don't succeed if you don't try.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And before we finish, I want to add, another sort of one onto that. Again, a lot of going back to our, the sort of theme of young people. Some of the people we work with, they have really bad days. They might be really creative people, might be artists. They might want to work in the studio, and they might have wonderful, wonderful musical output. But sometimes they just don't want to get out of bed, and sometimes they have a bad day. And I wonder, do you have bad days? What are they like?
Yes, sometimes, but
yeah,
I mean, I used to maybe drown my sorrows a bit too much, and that's
right,
a long time ago.
yeah,
Sometimes, if it's not working that day, well, don't bother.
yeah,
It's always a new day tomorrow, you know.
yeah. Absolutely, man. That's a good answer. Again, it's focusing on the future there, I think, and that's a good theme for
Yeah.
for this chat. And I really do appreciate your time today. But this is the last one where we check whether I've done my job properly. Really, is there anything you would like to plug? Anything you think I've missed during this chat that you would like to promote before we finish up?
Not really. Only other than thanks for your time and your interest in the record. Hopefully, you like it. Give it a spin. I always say if people play the record once, doesn't mean they can't play it twice.
Ah, man. Yes, it's good. I listened to it before. And I'm going to be listening to it this afternoon, man. Yeah, it's good fun.
All right, so.
Good fun, mate.
All right, Tom.
Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot.